Welcome to Financial Clarity, the podcast dedicated to helping service-based small business owners achieve financial success. Join us as we demystify financial concepts, get practical tips from seasoned entrepreneurs, and discover strategies to increase profit and value. Hey, it's Hannah Smolinski here. I'm the host of the Financial Clarity podcast, where I have conversations with successful entrepreneurs, financial experts, and leaders in the small business community. Past guests include Karen Conroy, who tailored her marketing agency to be exactly what law firms need while making it work for her lifestyle, and Sarah Russo, who built a successful PR firm in the book publishing world after leaving her corporate publishing job. Be sure to check out these episodes and more on your favorite podcast app. Today's episode is brought to you by Clara CFO Group. Clara CFO is a fractional CFO agency dedicated to supporting growing B2B service companies. If you're looking to uplevel your financial strategy and leadership in your business, visit claracfo.com to learn more. Today's guest was introduced to me by Amalia Martino of the Vita Agency, which is a multicultural marketing agency here in Washington State. Amalia was guest number 1 on this podcast and shared part of her entrepreneurship journey in that episode. So please go check that one out. And you can also learn more about the Vita Agency by going to thevitaagency.com. That's VIDA. Today's guest is Heather Lowrey. Heather is an accountant turned therapist, now dedicated to helping people transform their relationship with money. In both her therapy and coaching practices, she guides clients to understand how their beliefs about money and work impact their relationships with their partners, families, friends, and most importantly, themselves. She is the owner of 2 businesses, HSL Counseling, which is a therapy practice, and Wise Mind Financial that provides financial coaching. Heather, I'm very happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here as well, Hannah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I saw your bio and I was like, oh, she was an accountant and now she's a therapist. So that is really cool. Can you tell us like what that journey was like and why you started in accounting and then decided to leave and go into this other side of your like this new new venture? And well, I guess it's not new anymore, but leaving accounting and going into therapy.
Sure. Yeah, so I deep down knew I always wanted to be a therapist, but going into college, never knew anyone who had been a therapist or psychologist, had no clue what that business even meant. So I did, what the responsible oldest child does, and you just get a degree in business. So it's like when you don't know what to do, it's like you business. And so I went to college at Texas A&M. My degree was in economics. And then I just entered into the accounting field right after and knew pretty soon that this was not a fit for me, not a fit for my personality, and knew that something was going to have to change if I was going to be working for the next 45 years, the next 40 something years. And so I really just was kind of digging down deep of like, what would I want to do if money wasn't an object? Like, what do I find interesting? What do I want to continue to learn about? And the answer was always psychology. Nothing else was even close.
Yeah.
And so I was 27 when I decided to go to grad school. My undergrad was in economics. So it's like, what is this going to be like? I need to like take this class, but things ended up just working out, and it was the best decision that I made. It was scary.
Yeah.
Having been in corporate for a couple of years at that point, and the income being back in corporate accounting, and saying, no, I'm going to go back to grad school where I also am going to have to do internships. Like a lot of people didn't quite understand like my logic there, but
Yeah.
best decision. I'm so glad that I did it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So then when you left there, were you thinking like, oh, I want to still do something with money? Or are you like, no, I'm going to reject everything that I learned through accounting and economics and just focus on, helping people through my therapy practice? Like, were you ever thinking that they would cross over again?
Not at all. When I was in grad school, I was lucky enough to be able to do like some bookkeeping jobs. So I thought about it of like, this will be something that helps pay the bills while I'm in grad school and doing internships. But it would have never occurred to me that would have stayed a part of my business. I went into therapy specifically wanting to work with eating disorders.
Mm.
And it kind of expanded into like just behavioral compulsions, and recognizing like the reason that things like eating disorders are challenging is because you're having to face the thing that's causing you distress every day. It's not substance abuse where sobriety means you just don't have this thing in your life anymore.
Uh,
With food, you are having to figure out how to integrate this into your life every single day, regardless of the amount of distress that it's giving, that it's causing. And I kind of noticed some of the parallels with money and
ah,
sort of like financial anxiety that would happen, overworking or under earning, financial hoarding, that no matter how much you don't want to think and talk about money, it's something we deal with every single day.
yeah.
So in put tying those two together, and then the third part comes like with relationships. So I work with some compulsive attachments with relationships.
Mm.
So being able to recognize like what are some of these things where it's causing us distress, but we still have to find a way to live with it every single day. And that's hard. It's
Yeah.
really difficult. Um, and through that, also realizing that there was a lot of the roads were very like, there are a lot of crosses with the roads with people's relationship with food, sex and relationships, and money.
Mm.
So they kept informing each other. And so that's what my practice has been focused on is how one's behavior with food, relationships, and with money is impacting their life.
Hmm. That's so interesting. I never really thought about that before. It's like, yeah, there's people who really hate talking about money, but then they still have to use it every single day and they still have to make decisions every single day about it. So that's probably very stressful. I
Yes.
never have really even thought about it that way because I love talking about money.
Yeah.
I like using money. It's okay. But, I know I'm kind of actually probably more on the rare side of that. So, um, can you tell me what it looks like and what your financial coaching practice looks like? How do you actually help clients as they're, if they come to you and they say, "Hey, I know I need help. I don't know what that looks like." Like what does a financial coaching practice even look like?
Sure. And so one thing that to distinguish is financial therapy and financial coaching. So there's actual a financial therapy association.
Oh, okay.
So because there are, again, like a lot of mental health professionals within financial therapy, there you might find investment people, some insurance, some wealth management. So it's trying to like it's a more holistic picture, like when you think of financial therapy. So with my coaching business, with my Wise Mind Financial, because it's not therapy, and I have to be careful to keep them separate. um,
Yes, yeah.
with the coaching piece, one thing that I really enjoy doing with people is doing what I call a snapshot and just them telling me like what's happening on your bank statement right now.
Mm,
Many times that can really give a picture about what's going on in somebody's life and a really good jumping off point. Also, because there can be so much avoidance regarding money, just even the act of asking someone to look at their statements can start a whole new conversation about I've never logged on before, or I just throw the statement away when it comes, or my husband handled all that stuff, or my dad handled all that stuff.
mm,
So, even at the most basic level, like what somebody's everyday relationship with money can say so much about where we go.
mhm.
And depending on the needs of what the client has, and that can depend also like on their demographic. Like, is it like a new grad, so like a Gen Z versus a millennial couple? Like, there's going to be different things they're focused on. But I just work a lot on challenging the denial and the avoidance piece. That
Mm,
tends to be more of the issue is just the blatant denial and avoidance.
yeah. Well, let's talk about that. So, w are most people coming to you with that approach to money?
Most people who find me, and I know we talked briefly before, a lot of people who find me know me from my accounting background or the therapy world. So they still tend to they overlap no matter how hard I try for them to not. But so most people have a recognition that they don't like money, don't like talking about it, that it makes them feel uncomfortable, but still aren't quite sure what to do with it.
Yeah.
And again, I mentioned like different demographics come with different will come with different challenges, but they want to know more. But again, the more you push them into it, whatever is causing that avoidance or anxiety can really flare up.
Hmm.
And this is where being a therapist is really helpful, even though
Mm.
this isn't therapy, but our family of origin, our past experiences inform everything that we do. And
Yes.
he is no different. So, in hearing people's history, in what they observed in their family or in some of their prior relationships or in the world, can really inform like what's going on in their current with their current relationship with money. And so being a therapist allows me to dig in a little bit more, but still keeping it in an appropriate container. So I look at it as being a therapist allows me to get maybe a bit more of a deeper context of what somebody is dealing with
Yeah.
than just on the surface. But also, me maintaining the boundary. So again, it's context and not opening a Pandora's box where all of a sudden they thought they were getting, financial coaching and now they're, you know, in a trauma space. But many
Yeah.
times people's first relationship with money is their observations of what they saw in their household growing up. So
Mm.
that can play a really big role into like how they treat money within their own households.
Mhm. I'm curious how you see it playing out when somebody has a challenging relationship with money and maybe it does feel scary or they don't like it or they say they don't like it. And then they go and start a business. What do you see that like what does that look like in for an entrepreneur who is trying to have a successful business and yet is kind of has this relationship with money?
I recommend wholly that somebody starts off with um, a bookkeeper and or an accountant in some form if there's no business experience and
Mhm.
they're going into a business because we don't know what we don't know. And many times the idea of success in a business is, okay, do I have sales? Do I have income coming in? And there's so much more that goes into running a business than sales. Like obviously that's a very important piece of it. But if there's not an understanding about how expenses are supposed to be managed, there's not an understanding about like assets and depreciation. If their business happens to have that, about what they should be doing for different types of taxes, people can get in trouble really fast.
Mhm.
Much harder to clean up than to go slow in the beginning and kind of have someone who's helping set them up. I noticed there being a hesitation when people are starting a new business because of trying to save money. So it's like, oh, well, I'm sure I can just get on QuickBooks and I can do it myself. Um, and they kind of make it sound like you can. And it's like, you can, but are you going to know what those numbers are saying? are saying?
Right.
And so a lot of my earlier iteration of Wise Mind Financial, when I was doing bookkeeping for therapists, my initial services really were setting up the QuickBooks for them because it was like literally like people who like don't if you don't have accounting experience, you just don't have it. And I think
Yeah.
I took for granted because I'd been doing it my whole career. I took for granted some of the stuff that I knew. It's like, oh no, not everyone knows how to set up a chart of accounts, or what goes where. And so that ended up being a service that I was offering just unintentionally, but it was like that was a need. You can't do basic bookkeeping if there's not a correct chart of accounts.
Yeah, for sure. I
So that's
think that
It's like bringing in professionals at the beginning, even
yeah.
though financial outlay can be really stressful. So, I mean, doing the research, making sure you're not hiring too high of a level for when you're starting off, but um, it's so much more of a headache to try to clean up past tax issues and then to that little bit of a financial outlay up front to get it done, have it done correctly and moving
Yeah.
forward.
That makes sense. So, like, getting the help from the beginning. Now, people might not realize that they maybe might be running into something. So, um, like, what are the triggers for people to think about reaching out to you for Wise Mind to get some financial coaching? Like, what is happening in their lives where they're like, okay, like, this is a problem that I need to go and find a solution for?
So, similar to what brings people to therapy, there usually has been some sort of breaking point.
Yeah.
Um, not huge, like life changing, but there's been something that has caused a shift to make this come to the forefront as a priority. So with my like my 20 somethings, it's we're having graduated and they're on their own for the first time. So first job, maybe first apartment. And so realizing how little they knew about money just because parents are handling everything.
Mhm.
And knowing that it's gotten delayed a little bit. So when I started doing this, I might be with a 22 or 23-year-old, but I have plenty of people who are like 27 and 28 who are just now having to really look at their finances just because of, the extended adolescence period. So there's a lot of people in their mid 20s who are still figuring this piece out.
Yeah.
Um, with some in the older generations, it could be navigating when there's been a change in a lifestyle change. So, somebody like going through a divorce and navigating what it means to be part of their household again. With couples, it can be they've been kind of doing their own parallel thing for a while, and the reality is that they're on completely different planes with um, with money and it's causing consequences. Those are the kind where it can definitely straddle when is this a um, kind of marriage and family therapy type thing issue versus financial coaching. Uh,
Mhm.
and so that is usually, that's, case by case determining does it make more sense, for them to be referred out for the therapy piece and then I just do
Mhm.
a coaching piece because I don't do both for anyone. I
Right.
can't. Um,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of people who are getting a form of financial coaching who there isn't a therapeutic issue that really that they're not needing therapy to deal with it. Sometimes there is, but
Yeah.
sometimes the financial literacy is a really big piece of it, or the lack of literacy and the copious amount of information that's out there on social media as well for people who didn't have somebody to talk to about this. They're getting all their information online. And so you'll just have this like misinformation that, a whole, subsect of people are following. Um, but yeah, usually there's been some inflection point in their life where the ignoring of money is just no longer
Yeah.
working for them.
That makes sense. Do you use the term money mindset?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. What would be like, what are some examples of different money mindsets?
Yeah. So I know we're going to talk a bit about a couple of books, but
Yeah.
um, book that I love, love, love is called Mind Over Money by
Mm.
Brad. And he talks about um, people having money scripts,
Yeah.
that kind of fall into certain things. So it can be like um, a money focus on things. So like the idea of like trying to attain money, the more the better. There can be the avoidance of money, status. So a lot of like the pursuit of money because of the status that it can offer. And then like a hypervigilance. So what we might think of as with like kind of financially hoarding. So maybe living below your means to a dangerous level, or always saving so much and not getting regular needs met. So it's like the abundance and scarcity, just like we talk about like with eating disorder stuff, like the
Yeah.
binge deprive cycle.
Mm.
So again, they're very very similar, and also being able to have those analogies can sometimes help people realize what's going on in their relationship with money because they can maybe see the parallels about how they act in other areas.
Mm.
It's I go shopping and just say budget be damned, after I have a fight with my husband, you know
Mm.
that I feel guilty and then, try to sneak the stuff in or I try to return it. But, you only spent the money because of the emotional connection or, the amount of money spent on if somebody's like binging on food, like that can be like this high correlation to like what's going on with their bank account. And
Mm.
so many times, like what's going on with one of those things can inform what's happening with the other, which is again, why as a therapist I have to be careful to like be able to tease apart when something's therapeutic versus no,
Right.
this is just context for somebody's behavior and it's doesn't need to go any deeper. Sometimes it's just
Yeah.
bringing something to somebody's awareness.
Yeah. Huh. So, do you run into situations where somebody maybe doesn't know, but all the signs are there that they have a challenging relationship with money? Like maybe let's say they have a scarcity mindset and let's say they're running a business and they have a scarcity mindset, but they aren't clued in yet to the fact that that's maybe what's like holding them back and what they want to do. Um, w- how do you h- how can you like bring that to light to them to say like here's some things or here's what I'm seeing? I don't know how do you help them realize that maybe like that is part of what's going on?
So I will typically kind of ask what a day, what kind of like their typical day or week looks like financially, like with their
Mhm.
business. So, you know, do you look at your bank account? Are you checking it every morning? Is it a once a week, once a month type thing? You know, do you know what you have on auto draft? Like, so being able to just even have an awareness of like what are the ins and outs, like the literal financial ins and outs of the business, and being able to really even tell like what their demeanor is when you are asking about it. Because many times like there'll be a tangible like shift in tone when I ask very direct questions about
Yeah.
money. It's, the thing we're supposed to not talk about because it's rude and it's no one's business. And, yeah, so there can be like a discernible shift when I ask like a very pointed question of like, well, okay, well, about how much is coming in weekly? And it's like, "What?" It's like, "This is literally you literally hired me for this." So, like, it's okay to say these numbers, but
Yeah.
so just, like, the avoidance of talking about it,
Mm.
um, feels so strong. So, and this is where some of my therapist skills come out, is being able to ask very direct questions. Um,
Mhm.
are so uncomfortable about money that, if we're vague, people are gonna give us vague answers back, and that's not gonna be helpful for
Yeah.
them. So some of it is just asking how they feel like their business is running for them right now. And in a perfect world, what would be different? What would they like to think more about, or what would they like to think less about? How would they like their time to be spent differently in running this business? And in a perfect world, meaning within the realm of possibility, but ideally, like what would it look like? How many hours would you want to spend doing the income generating pieces of your business versus this back this back end piece? How do you notice feeling quarterly when estimated taxes are due? Like what's going on at like year end? So being able to like talk about the details of what it is to run a business and seeing how they are able their tolerance for discussing it.
Mhm.
And I've had dozens and dozens of clients, like therapist clients that I've worked with over like the past like 10-ish years. Um, and overwhelmingly, at least with that demographic, once they realize what they're missing, they're very receptive to like getting a bookkeeper or letting someone handle it. Because with a lot of businesses, again, it's like, how much money, do I have enough to pay my bills? Do I have enough to pay myself? Cool. But, if there's not an examination of what's going on with like, expenses, then it doesn't matter how much you're bringing in if you're hemorrhaging it on the other side.
Yeah.
And yeah, and only looking at the bank statement, but not the full financial statements, it can give people like this false sense of security
Mm.
um, with how the business is going, or understanding the role of like overworking. So it's like, if it's always about like, this is how much money I need to bring in, if somebody's not looking at their whole business picture, they may not realize, oh, wow, there's a big chunk of expenses that maybe can be cleared away or reallocated. And then like you get to, that would be profit instead of it going out of the door. So I would see that frequently with really high rents for like office leases for therapists. I'm sure that's kind of gone down somewhat just since the pandemic and so many people working from home. But some of these, I mean, gorgeous offices, but just these exorbitant amounts of rent. And it's like, is that like how conducive it's long term? Like
Yeah.
beautiful view, but if it's like, if it's a $4,000 a month office view, like that's all it automatically means such a huge chunk of your business coming in is going to that. And the thing is, when you're a therapist, your business is you. So it's not like I'll just make more widgets.
Yeah.
It's you doing something. And
Yeah.
burnout as a therapist is so it's so difficult to like
Yeah.
we don't have that luxury. I will think back to like my accounting days and like if you're having a bad accounting day, it's fine. Like I'm on Excel. So I can just put headphones in and just like I'm in Excel or in QuickBooks and it's
Right.
you you can't do that when you're dealing with people. So
Yeah.
helping, kind of understand how the business can work more efficiently, because then that means that we get to work more efficiently.
Yeah.
We don't have the luxury of just, again, just duplicating ourselves and that automatically generating more income.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good point. And then a lot of times like there's a ceiling for what you can charge too on that. So, or at least like, to be somewhat competitive with other people. But um I'm curious if you ever see people who are on the extreme. So, like, we talk about scarcity a little bit as that's like probably maybe more common, I would imagine it's probably more common than having too much of an abundance problem. But I mean, there's probably issues on the other side too, where somebody has such an abundance problem. Can you tell me if you've ever encountered that or what that looks like? Is that can we go too far the other way?
And I'll also say with people who have a
Oh,
scarcity.
hold on one second. That first word just completely dropped off. I couldn't hear what you said.
Um, Speaking of the scarcity mindset, many people with scarcity mindset also have a binge process someplace else. So
Oh.
I'll also kind of ask about other areas of life and again, straddling that therapy line. But scarcity inherently is going to breed binging on the other side. So sometimes we
Ooh.
just have to see where it's happening. So this scarcity mindset in this area might mean that it might mean that there's like something compulsive, like regarding food or exercise or relationships or perfectionism. So it's like kind of recognizing that whenever there's like a scarcity, there's going to be a corresponding excess
Hmm.
somewhere.
Interesting.
So yeah, figuring out what that is. But yeah, so with what you're saying with the other end of the spectrum, really, really fascinating that aspect. I was first introduced to that. I lived in Seattle for 6 years.
Oh.
So I was having this high volume of people in tech just from
Hmm.
being there. And I'm in Texas now and I have been in Texas. So there was a demographic shift because going up there, it was a lot of people under the age of 30 who are working in tech and making, good chunks of money, especially to be 24. So dealing with the newness of having income, especially just from even being an undergrad, like just any job is kind of a big jump from when you're in school.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so understanding what it meant to them based on the salary that they had and how was it impacting their relationships with friends, with their parents, with extended family. So this idea that, having more money automatically makes things easier is just not true. There's just
Hmm.
different sets of or new, like just additional things that come with it. There's problems that you do have and don't have. But that was something that was interesting in working in that is like, some people in making a certain amount of money at a young age were still had four roommates and were back, living like they were still, freshmen. And others were, had immediately, high rise downtown and Tesla and these vacations like in the first 6 months, So it's kind of noticing like what is coming up for somebody when they see this. One of the when something that feels like a contradiction with some of the money avoidance, the idea of like the money avoidance, there can also be, um, excuse me, that can be like almost a rejection. So we might look at it as this person being like, just like this, oh my God, they just love shopping, love spending. But really, that's part of their money avoidance because they get it and they want it away as fast as possible. So
Hmm.
it can be like this misunderstanding of like how their money is being used But yeah, so some of the with the compulsive spenders, it can be like the discomfort about having any money accumulate because what does it mean when you have money? Like, what beliefs do I have about like what it means to be rich, or these are the things that rich people do? And so people, if they're getting to this certain financial level, like actively pushing it away. So overspending, it can be over donating, giving too much money to, their kids or to letting friends borrow. So yeah, so
Mm.
people like recognizing when there's too much, it just opens up a new avenue of things to potentially be concerned about.
Hmm. Wouldn't have thought about that with like avoidance actually pushing money away. Um, that kind of just brings to mind for me, like, is there a sweet spot of being in a good, I don't know, you could use the term healthy, maybe that's not the right word, but is there a place where we can sit where we're not feeling too scarce, not feeling like we are, too abundant or anything like that? What does that look like? How does somebody gauge if they've like kind of done their work and they're like, okay, I'm at peace or I'm at a place of balance?
Yeah. So with the financial piece, as with a lot of mental health, just all health, it's being able to have the flexibility to deal with the highs and lows, the ebb and flow that
Mm.
happens. Because the hyperfixation on money, like the person who's like, checking all their balances, 3 times a day, that has its own, can have its own emotional consequence.
Yeah.
um, if so much of my sense of security, self-worth is based on what these numbers say on the statement, things happen. And so if everything is kind of tethered to the meaning that we've attached to money, when life inevitably happens, is there a tolerance if that part of my life starts to look different? So I look at health from a financial health as it's not based on a certain number because so many circumstances. Everyone has a different number. Everyone has
Mhm.
different needs and short and long term goals. I look at it more as the ability to be honest with themselves and with their partner slash family, challenging the avoidance piece. So just that I'm just not going to look at that. I'm just not going to log on to that, to that IRA statement. Um, and adaptability. And part of adaptability comes from like increased financial literacy.
Mm.
So as situations change, okay, well, what do I need to do different now that X has happened? But if there's, again, too much self identity attached to money, if a situation happens, kind of people crumble.
Mm.
And so, like, I'm thinking of like even in starting a business, like when I became self employed. So there were new things to think about of like, you're used to like the company was paying for, with your benefits and health insurance. And so
Yeah.
when you're self-employed, it's realizing, oh, these are all the little pieces that HR used to manage that are now my responsibility and are just as important. But now that's something that I have to navigate. And so it's just like those little things about being okay, like when our situation changes, either by choice or, just by the universe, having an adaptability to still stay present with our finances and be okay making necessary changes, dealing with the grief, if that's a piece of it. Like in the book I mentioned, Mind Over Money, the author talks about financial flashpoints. So different things that just happen that can happen in our life that usually have a corresponding consequence. So there are these pivotal moments that we might have experienced in our life that that are money related that ended up kind of tweaking things. So a common example might be, if if there's a job loss, and so
Mm.
he has to, move to a different neighborhood, or if there's a promotion or a financial windfall, and all of a sudden, because there's more income, they're in a totally different socioeconomic, different neighborhood, different social structure. Like that's stressful, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so, if somebody, marries into a certain type of family or is in politics or in a certain organization, those types of things can really connect identity to money, to one's individual identity to money. And so that's kind of what these flashpoints are. are the different things that people might experience that end up having like this ongoing impact on their life.
Hmm.
So yes, long answer is I look at it as like honesty, challenging the avoidance and
Yeah.
adaptive.
Yeah. I like that. I like that because, yeah, it's not a one size fits all. There's not like a bullseye target that we're all shooting at to get to the same point. So I like that. Well, I have a couple questions just about like you are a business owner, you own two businesses, and you've got two different kind of business models and they kind of have different rules. Like coaching can be a little bit more what you want to make it, but therapy, obviously, you have things that need to be governing your therapy practice. I'm curious, like with both of your businesses, what has been either one, what has been some of the hardest financial challenges you've had as you've grown your business, either leaving working with for somebody else and then starting your own business or growing one versus the other? Just curious what you've encountered.
So I would say the biggest challenge and something that I also have worked on with coaching clients who run businesses is being okay with the idea that they want to be successful.
Mm.
And so challenging some of the beliefs about how much am I charging? This is too much. Oh, I don't want to. She's having a hard time. Maybe I won't charge for that session. And there's a piece of that that also is a boundary issue,
Yeah.
that's important to have. But being in a helping profession can be easy for us to want to help everyone, but
Hmm.
can't help everyone and and help yourself.
Mm.
But that was something that I would see a lot in working with people is, because as a therapist, there's like the option to to have like sliding scale based
Right.
on need. So there's different options, but it's still a business. So sometimes it would be remembering that like, okay, well, I can't see, you can only see so many people a week as a therapist without just, losing it,
Yeah.
but you're letting everyone have a sliding scale. How much is actually coming in and is that sustainable?
Mm.
You Sometimes there would really be pushback in working with people and this idea of like, I think you need to raise your rates because if you're only charging like $50 a session, like that's just not doing, you know,
Yeah.
um, and and that could be really difficult. Just like just knowing the financial situations of clients. Um, but it's like, but you won't be able to help them at all if you can't be in practice.
Mm.
Um,
Have you run into that yourself where you, especially maybe seeing money coaching?
I would say no,
Yeah.
only because I'm an accountant
Yes. Yes.
and I
Good.
just always knew what was coming in and going out.
I love it.
So, no. And knowing that like you can still offer like, sliding scale, that you can still, offer like pro bono for certain cases. But if you're not looking at your whole business, you don't know you don't know what you can give away if you don't know what you have.
Yes.
So that
Mhm.
was kind of like would be a big piece of it of no, like you have this practice because you're wanting to help people. If this business can't survive, you're not helping anyone.
Yes.
And and that would be difficult. Like, I think because I'm so comfortable talking about money that sometimes it maybe would come off a little too direct. Um, but it's me.
Yeah.
But
Like,
yeah, and people who have been in the giving and helping professions, like, we're kind of taught that like it's about us doing this as a service. Um, but it's like, yeah, but we didn't take a vow of poverty in doing this.
exactly.
Or
Yeah.
you can't see 40 clients a week. That just like is just not sustainable.
No.
So it is like there's only so many numbers. There's only so much math. So we can figure out the math, but it's like we have to be realistic.
Yeah.
So
That's
I would say that would be the biggest thing is within certain professions, like giving people permission to be successful.
mm, yeah. I mean, I think I still run into that with clients sometimes is like, do they really feel that they can be, or that they deserve it, or that they're working hard enough for it. Sometimes that's the thing. They're like, maybe I'm not working hard enough to deserve that much money. And, there's a lot of stuff that can come out of that. Um, I can see that especially in the helping professions, that definitely happens a good bit. We worked with therapists as well, and that mindset coming up almost of like other people in the profession aren't doing super well financially. So maybe I should also, kind of align to what my peers maybe expect. If there might be a culture or a social expectation of what money I should be earning.
As of
Um,
attached to certain professions of like,
yes.
it's hustle is like a part of being blank,
Mm,
um, fill in the profession. And so, but I just maintain when your service is yourself, like you can't, um, that there's just going to be a cap on that at some point because you're still just one person.
yes.
Yeah. So it's figuring out if, knowing that, there might be people who can't afford your regular rate, having referral options in places where they can, like, just like a PSA, like many times, like people who are out of grad school we have to get thousands and thousands of hours to get our license. And so
Mhm.
many times, like people who are, good therapists are just early in their career, being able to find a sliding scale that will, that's more appropriate. And so, being able to have that as an option. So like a clinician can make sure that they're building a business that's like sustainable for them and their
Mhm.
household, but still offering, being able to offer, a range of services at a
Yeah.
right, being able to refer out. But so many of those beliefs again are coming from how people grew up. There's significant cultural implications that play a role
Mhm.
into how people feel about taking money from other people.
Mhm.
So it's a very sensitive topic. And again, the parts of me that are glad that I'm a therapist too, because it allows just different ways to discuss it because yeah, it's always more than just numbers. There's
Mm.
always
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, I always kind of say like money is like emotionless, right? Like money itself, it's just a thing. But it is so emotionally packed for so many people that there's always a lot of feelings that happen around it. But it's not actually the money that's the problem. It's the all the other things that have happened around the money. Um,
The meaning and the attachment and the
yes.
identity that we've attached to these statuses, which is why it's so powerful.
Absolutely. Heather, there's a lot of online tools for tracking personal budgets and financial tracking your personal finances. Do you have any favorite tools that you like working with?
Yes. Favorite ones that I have right now are Simplify. It is a Quicken product. It might even be a Quicken product now, but it was called Simplify. Um, and I used to be a big fan of Mint. Mint shut down like late last year, maybe early this year. Simplify, I found to be very similar because I mean, Mint was an Intuit company.
Yeah.
So Simplify is great. A lot of people really enjoy You Need a Budget.
Hmm.
Um, and it's very focused on the budgeting piece. That one didn't work as well for me because I just like the reporting a little bit better on the Mint type programs or like with Simplify, whereas You Need a Budget is very specifically about allocating what you have for the budget.
Yeah.
But it has like a cult following. People love
Yeah,
that.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Empower
Mm.
is one which also it used to be called Personal Capital.
Oh, yeah.
So again, like they've been like kind of changed. I've been just doing it for so long. It's like, what iteration was this? Empower is one now, and it was Personal Capital. I really liked that one. Like that one talks more about it integrates investments a little bit more.
Okay.
So be as relevant for kind of the younger people. But Simplify, I feel like it's the most user friendly.
Yeah, that's great. I used to also use Mint, and then I moved to Monarch after Mint. And I've been really enjoying that because it has like a budgeting piece to it, like a forecasting, not just like budgeting. You have your monthly, but then you can also like forecast for the year. And I nerd out on that.
It's another one called Tiller,
Yeah,
Till.
I've used Tiller.
So I've used that one too, and that one is spreadsheet based, and so
Yes.
people like that piece more. So I've kind of bounced around with all of them. Tiller was pretty fun actually. Just
Yeah.
if spreadsheets, there's just and it has a good community, so they lots of they're creating new spreadsheets, and so if you like spreadsheets, like Tiller was pretty cool.
Yeah. If you are a Google Sheets
Yeah,
nerd, or you will love Tiller, and yeah, you can do a lot of customization with it. So if you don't want to be confined by, a software platform, that Tiller is really great for that.
but simple,
Awesome.
really good app, and so I feel like that is a good. The desktop is good, but the app is really well. So I think it goes back to this having consistency.
Yeah.
So it's going to be user friendly enough that you can update it on your phone or update it when you're at your computer, but it's
Yeah.
consistent.
Probably just like anything, the best app or thing or budget is the one that you use. So, yes, if you are just not going to if you're just going to hop around and never commit to one, we don't recommend that. So, all
It's
right.
very just subscriptions that you're not using.
Yes, happens all the time. I'm always having to like delete things. Well, we are unfortunately running out of time. And but I have one last question for you before I ask it. I want to make sure to point people to your website. Now you have a counseling practice that's HSL Counseling, and you're located in Texas.
Yes, I located in Texas, also licensed in Washington State.
Oh
So
yeah.
do virtual in both Texas and
Oh
in
nice.
from the therapy side.
Yeah, I'm also in Washington State. And
Oh,
yeah, just north of Seattle. And then your financial coaching business is wisemindfinancial.com. So you can go and
yes.
check out those. And the last question I have for you is, what is a book or a podcast that you would recommend to people wanting to work on their relationship with money? I know you mentioned the one, Mind Over Money. And then I think you had another one to talk
Yes.
about.
Another one called the Financial Anxiety Solution. Um, and yes, the Financial Anxiety Solution by Lindsay Bryan Podman. And it's a workbook. And she is a mental health professional. And so it really comes from that lens of really challenging the anxiety that comes from finally like thinking about money.
Mm,
And I've been recommending it to a lot of my clients because my direct way doesn't work with everyone. Because again, a lot of people don't want to talk about money. And so when I read her book, I loved just the way she broke it down. It's like,
yeah.
okay, get a cup of tea. Maybe put on, a scene or put on some quiet music and we're going to do blank. And so I really like that piece as like introducing like the emotional self-care piece to
Yeah.
a really anxiety producing topic for a lot of people. So
Mhm.
yes, I highly recommend that one. The Financial Anxiety Solution is a great workbook.
I love that. That is so helpful. Thank you for sharing. Heather, it's been such a pleasure talking to you today. I'm so glad you were able to share your wisdom with us. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much. This was great.
All right. Thanks for listening to the Financial Clarity Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes to learn more about today's episode and click subscribe on your favorite podcast app.